Hello, welcome back to the Nonhuman Narratives podcast. I'm your host, Cal G, and today we have a very special guest. And when I say special, I mean truly one of a kind. Today, we are talking to a literal tree. Yes, you heard me, a tree, standing right in the middle of Tompkins Park in Calgary, living, breathing, growing, and somehow speaking to us today. Now I know what you're thinking. A tree, really? But trust me, this is going to be a conversation like no other. Our guest has witnessed over a century of life unfold right here in this park. That means over 100 years of stories, changes, and people coming and going. And today, we get to hear it all. So without further ado, welcome Tree.
Thank you for having me, Cal. It's nice to finally be acknowledged as more than just a place to sit, lean, or carve initials into. Not that I mind it most of the time, but it's about time someone asked me how I feel as a tree.
Absolutely. I feel like we don't ask trees how they feel enough. So let's start from the beginning. How did your life begin here at Tompkins Park?
My life started shortly after the creation of Tomkins Park in 1915, actually. It's been so long living in this park that I call home that I'm actually unsure of my exact age, but I know I'm around 100 years old. I can thank Eleanor Tompkins for my creation, as she generously donated land acting on behalf of her late husband to the people of Calgary. It was put that Eleanor's vision was clear. The land will be used for park purposes and for the city's people to enjoy. I'll also tell you, Cal, that I've come to find out that even before my life started and even before Eleanor and Henry Tompkins were even alive, that the land that I dug my roots in and that Tompkins Park is on was used by the Tsuut'ina Nation as a hunting ground. I learned about this in the 1970s, and it was when the humans were excavating the land across the street. And during the construction of the Mount Royal Village building, they actually uncovered ancient bison bones beneath the building, thus providing evidence of buffalo hunts from 8,000 years ago, long before my time.
That's incredible. You've been rooted here your entire life, watching the city grow and change around you. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen, Tree?
I gotta say that over the 100 years that I've lived here in Tompkins Park, I've seen plenty of change, and not just physically, with the buildings being torn down and rebuilt. For example, the Mount Royal block that was destroyed in 2005 and then rebuilt. But I also have seen changes socially as well. Back in the 1930s, 1940s ish, when I was just a small sapling, Tompkins Park was a place where people gathered daily. Neighbors from Lower Mount Royal met up with friends, they shared conversations, and humans connected face to face. And as a young tree, I found it fascinating to see humans making these personal connections right in front of me. Little did I know how much that would change over time. And I mean that by today, I still see humans gathering, but their interactions are often interrupted by those little bright screens they carry in their pockets. Phones, I believe you humans call them. I mean, I don't mind them, but I do notice that they take attention away from the present moment.
That is so interesting. You've literally witnessed how human behavior has evolved over time. Oh, and speaking of gatherings, I have to ask, How do you feel about the big crowds that come here for events? Like when the Flames are in playoffs, or when a band is playing in the park?
Oh, yes, the humans gathering. Over the years, I've seen humans gather in so many different forms, but it's been a more recent phenomenon in the past 10 to 5 years that I've seen humans gather more formally, I guess you could say. I've noticed that humans tend to gather when other humans play sounds. I'm assuming this is what a band, or what you call a band, is. I've also noticed that all the humans seem to gather here when they're all wearing matching red long sleeve shirts with like fire or flames on them. Now, I'm assuming this is what you call hockey playoffs, or what you wear during hockey playoffs. Now, during these events, when you wear the shirts and play the sounds, I enjoy it because the park is full. More people use my shade. More people sit under my branches and rest against my trunk. I like when humans interact with me in different ways, like, for example, using my roots as a stool. After all my years in Tomkins Park, I can say that not two interactions with a human are ever the same.
You know what, Tree? It's great to hear that you like us humans hanging out at the park, your home, with you. Now, since you mentioned seeing people using this space in the park in different ways, I have to ask, have you noticed anything strange or unique about the human behavior here in Tompkins Park?
Oh, definitely, Cal. Let me tell you. For one, humans love sitting. I've noticed that over the years that the benches in Tompkins Park has been replaced multiple times, but they always remain there no matter the season, compared to the picnic tables, as the picnic tables come and go with the changing leaves on myself. I find that my leaves are gone, my branches are bare, the picnic tables are gone. My leaves are there, my leaves are full, picnic tables are there. So it's interesting because the benches always seem to stay. And there's this one particular bench near 7th Ave, or the side of the park near 7th Ave, that seems to be especially popular lately with the humans. I think this popularity started around 2023 or 2024 when they started the building of the new luxury human home across the street. Uh, Enzo, I think it's called. So, ever since that building has been built up, that particular bench gets the most sunlight now compared to the other benches in the park. And it seems that the humans love basking in the sun just as much as I do. But, Cal, I gotta say, unfortunately, since that building went up, I've been getting a lot less sunlight, less than ever before. My leaves don't feel the warmth of the sun as much as they used to. And growing my branches has become harder. Even my neighbors, I've been chatting to them, the grass and the smaller plants and bushes, we're all struggling.
That's such an important perspective you pointed out, Tree. I never even considered how new buildings impact the sunlight in the park, not only for the plant life, but for the humans as well, and how simply a new building can change human behavior taking place in the park. I also wanted to ask Tree, since you're here throughout all seasons, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite season?
Oh, that's easy. Spring. After the long, cold spell, spring is when I start feeling the warmth of the sun again. and I know it's my time to grow. My leaves return, and the white cold piles, snow, I think you call it, melt into water, and my roots soak it all in. But the best part of it is watching humans navigate puddles. It's fascinating to me. Some humans step right in without a second thought, while others do this careful little dance to avoid getting their trunks wet. I don't know, that legs, feet. I see each human taking a different path, making up their own way throughout Tompkins Park. It's like an unplanned, choreographed performance, and it's one of my favorite things to watch.
That's an amazing way to look at it. Now, last thing I have to ask. As a tree, what's your take on littering?
Well, that's the one thing that really bothers me. Humans leave so much behind in my home. They leave food wrappers, drink containers, random objects. But the worst is those brown paper things, wrappers, or bags that humans seem to toss without a thought. And I've come to understand that they come from the blood of my ancestors. The blood of my ancestors. All the brown paper litter. And it is painful to watch pieces of my kind, my history, my relatives float through the park with no home, with no purpose. However, with all of that, I see that humans value certain things, like the shiny drink containers left behind by other humans. Some people actually gather them, and they're called cans. These cans are one of the few things that I see that humans leave behind that others actually see value in. I see a few of the same humans almost every day come by and look for the shiny cans that others leave behind. I think humans have the ability to give the shiny cans a purpose, and I love watching that. It's nice to see someone caring for something discarded, giving it meaning again.
That's such a powerful way to put it. I never really thought about it from your perspective as a tree whose home is filled with litter. And honestly, on behalf of all humans, I want to apologize for the way we've treated your home.
Thank you, Cal. It means something to be heard. Especially as a tree, I remain voiceless most of the time.
As we gotta wrap up pretty soon here, Tree, do you have any final thoughts for the people of Calgary?
I have just this. As a tree, I've been touched by millions, climbed by thousands, and I've watched generations pass beneath my branches. I've seen this park grow and change and the city evolve, and I've felt the love of the community that calls Calgary a home. My hope is that Calgary continues to grow, and with this growth, that people always remember me and my fellow trees here at Tomkins Park. We trees are here, rooted in history, providing shade, shelter, and presence. We are living things too. And I hope that in the years to come, people will continue to gather here at Tompkins Park, to connect, to care for this park, and to care for each other as much as I care for it and those in it.
That was beautifully said. Thank you, Tree, for sharing your stories, the history, and your perspective. This has been truly one of the most unique conversations I've ever had on this podcast yet. And to all of our listeners out there, next time you pass a tree, maybe take a moment to appreciate it. Maybe even say hello. And that's all for today's episode of Non Human Narratives. Thanks for listening.